Hello and welcome to this special program. It is special in a manner that each and every guest that we have in the studio is going to speak to a topical issue. My name is Dennis Ilukena, right on ZNBC Radio 2, and today let's all remember that it is International Forests Day, proclaimed by the UN General Assembly in 2012. Now, this day celebrates and raises awareness of the importance of all types of forests, and today it's being celebrated on the theme of forests and health. On each International Day of Forests, countries are encouraged to undertake local, national and international efforts to organize activities involving, forests and trees, such as tree planting, campaigns. As we might be aware and agree that forests cover 1/3 of the Earth's land mass, performing vital functions around the world. So that's about International, Forests Day. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow we are looking forward to celebrate World Water Day. Yes, it is held on 22nd of March every year since 1993. This day celebrates water and raises awareness of the 2 billion people living without access to safe water. Now, this year, the focus of the UN observance is on accelerating change to solve the water and sanitation crisis. And the global campaign called Be the Change encourages people to take action in their own lives to change the way they use, consume, and manage water. Let's not end here. Let's go further and look at Thursday. Thursday is World Meteorological Day. It takes place every year on 23rd March and commemorates the coming into force of 23rd March 1950 of the convention establishing the World Meteorological Organization. It showcases the essential contribution of national meteorological and hydrological services to the safety and well-being of society and is celebrated with activities around the world. The theme chosen for the World Meteorological Day reflects topical weather, climate, or water-related issues. 3 very important days in a row. So, with the support of the European Union, we are taking this opportunity to discuss the water-nature-climate nexus in our country. We will also try to see if our ecosystem remains able to ensure water availability for all Zambians. Once again, my name is Dennis Ilukena, your host on this very special program. Now, let's see if we can, speak to our experts that have come through today on this program. And we know very well that we do have several experts that collaborate with the EU-funded projects. Now, Dr. Charles Rindaile, Senior Advisor, Policy and Strategy, GIZ, Aware, will speak to us of his organization in full. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, listeners.
Great. And of course, alongside Dr. Shindaile is Mr. Gesho Mpule, coming in from WWF. Thank you so much for making it to the studio, and good morning.
Thanks, Dennis, and good morning, listeners.
Right. We also have Mr. Ninza Sichinga, CEO of the Cobalt Forestry Company. Good morning.
Good morning, Dennis, and good morning, listeners.
Right. Mr. Matthew Blair, Strategic Livelihoods Advisor for the Frankfurt Zoological Society. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Dennis. Thank you for having us here, and good morning to the listeners.
Great. Last but not the least, Mr. Moses Kaumba is a Senior Forest Research Officer joining us from the Forestry Department. You're welcome, sir. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Dennis, and good morning, listeners.
Great. Let me quickly remind our listeners that they can also be part of this discussion at a later stage by calling us on the number 0770-347-221. 0770-347-221. That's the number you can call us on to make a contribution or ask a specific question to our guests that we do have with us in the studio this morning. Now, I did mention, the 3 very important days that are coming through back to back, in a row, and we're going to speak to issues that surround all these 3 days I alluded to much earlier on the program. Let's begin with you, Dr. Shindaile. UN sources tell us that in sub-Saharan Africa, only 39% of the population has water connected to their homes. And in rural areas, this figure drops to 19%. How is the situation evolving in Zambia?
Yeah, Dennis, thank you so much. The situation in Zambia is not very different from what is obtaining in the world. As per latest NOASCO annual sector report, that is of 2021, in terms of water supply coverage in Zambia, we're standing at 89.2%. That is in urban. And in the rural areas, according to the Zambia Demographic and Health Survey, the latest report is 2018. There they are stating that the water supply coverage in the rural areas is 58%, but those that are getting water from boreholes is about 36%, and those that are getting from protected wells, that's in the rural areas, is about 14%. So not very different from the world statistics.
Great. A quick reminder once again, those that want to follow us using our social media platforms, you can get us at EU for Mulimi on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's at EU for Mulimi on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can send your messages there, and of course, even your questions if you do have any. I did introduce, Dr. Shindaile as coming through an organization called AWARE. Maybe for the sake of those who would want, to understand what does AWARE stand for.
Yeah, AWARE stands for Accelerate Water. And agriculture water use efficiencies.
Great. Now, Mr. Pule, you are collaborating with AWARE and the European Union. So could you explain to us how water, forests, and biodiversity are linked in our ecosystem and why this balance is important?
Yeah, thanks, Dennis, for that question. When you look at the forests control the water cycle by regulating precipitation, evaporation, and flows. And when you have a layer of forest canopy, branches and roots, they are able to store and release water vapor, which controls the rainfall. And also when you look at the critical role that forests play, like in terms of regulating and managing floods, they are able to protect us from the effects of floods by slowing the storms and also in some cases reducing the flows. So that's a role that forests play in the water cycle. So you cannot talk of the rainfall when you do not have forests, so they are interdependent, and this is why they are very, very important. And when it comes to biodiversity, biodiversity is described as all forms of life. That includes animals, plants, and also microorganisms, which we call bacteria. And when you look at the role these play, they are interlinked in an intricate web that we call the ecosystems. And these ecosystems are what now support life by providing us with clean water, food, and also medicine. So this is the role that the biodiversity will play in relation to the forest and the water. So it's very, very important to us, especially when we look at the statistics that are coming at the world. We see that from the Living Planet research that WWF conducts every year, we discovered that about 69% of biodiversity is facing extinction. And also there is the Global Assessment Index that also brought out the statistics that about 1 million species, that is in the form of plants and animals, are also threatened with extinction. So if we lose biodiversity, we lose also our life. And this is where now we see the importance of forest, water, and biodiversity in supporting our lives.
Great, thank you so much. Now, Matthew, what is your organization's activity in Zambia, and how can we develop the economy without menacing our biodiversity?
Thanks, Dennis. So the Frankfurt Zoological Society has been present in Zambia since 1986. So we're approaching our 36th year now in operation. We started off up in the North Luangwa landscape. And since then, we've taken on another project, which is our younger project up in Uytterhaeghe. And together, the areas combine a total protected area of 29,000 square kilometers. So it's a large area we're looking at. And within those areas, we've got biodiverse sensitive areas, which are integral, as my colleague Mr. Pule has just described, integral to our Earth's ecosystems as well as our own livelihoods. So as an organization, our priority is integrating a community landscape approach into the protection of biodiversity. So I'll use the North Luangwa ecosystem as an example. We have the Muchinga escarpment and the Lundazi escarpment that meets in the middle, and you get the protected area of the North Luangwa ecosystem. Within the North Luangwa protected area, there are 4 of the 6 major tributaries that feed into the Luangwa. Now, the Luangwa we know is one of the longest free-flowing rivers left in Zambia, which supplies a livelihood to millions of people here within Zambia, but then obviously flowing into the Zambezi and for millions more further down. So when it comes to managing the threat against biodiversity, a key approach for us is to integrate people into the model, to put value back on the biodiversity and of the landscapes of which everyone is living in.
Great. Now, let me quickly move to, Nilza. Your company is a guarantee of, the EU funded Enterprise Zambia Challenge Fund. Are you, and you are in the business of, substantially harvesting, timber. How does that work around, looking at our topical discussion today?
Thank you for that very important question, Dennis. Indeed, CFC is a grantee, one of the grantees of the EU-funded Enterprise Zambia Challenge Fund. And what we did specific to that project, which we dubbed the Tree Growers Project, is to essentially push out an agenda that sensitizes the Zambian individuals to start to plant trees. We, as industry players, recognize that the notion around planting trees has not fully been put out. In other words, we have not informed the public of the importance of trees. And so in-house, we put together a project where we could start to work with smallholder farmers across the country and encourage them to plant trees. Our role in that project is a facilitator, so we provide all the key inputs and also provide the training as well as the management support to our farmers to enable them to grow trees, commercial trees in that case, sustainably. Now, that project itself also has challenges in that we, A, have to educate our smallholder farmers on the importance of trees, but B, and more importantly, we have to incentivize them to continue with tree growing. So unlike many other crops, agriculture in particular, tree growing is very long-term in nature and therefore requires an in-depth understanding of what the benefits will be at a later stage. And that has been quite the challenge in our case so far, in as far as explaining that to our smallholder farmers. But that being the case, because we're working with smallholder farmers to plant more trees, commercial trees, we feel in the long term Zambia can get to full sustainability in the forestry sector. So that's the role we're playing with this project.
Great. Let's get to Mr. Kaumba. You're coming in from the forestry department. We want to find out from you what are the deforestation figures in Zambia, because if we could for the sake of our listeners compare trees to fountains that transport water from the ground up to the air, turning it into vapor. Now the vapor will form clouds and allow for rainfall further away. So we just want to understand where the deforestation becomes threatened within our ecosystem. What are these figures?
Thank you very much, Dennis. Officially, the rate of deforestation as the forestry department has undertaken and established through the FREO, the figure stands at 172,000 hectares per year, which has improved actually. By 2016, the figures that we had were about 276,021 hectares per year. But with the efforts that government is putting in place to actually resuscitate and also promote forest restoration, the current figure stands at 172,000 hectares per year.
Okay, great. If you're just joining us, you're listening to this special program where we're discussing issues that surround the three very important days. That is the International Forest Day today, 21st March, and tomorrow we'll be celebrating World Water Day. Then World Meteorological Day coming in on Thursday, and of course. With support from the European Union, we are taking this opportunity to discuss the water, nature, climate nexus in our country. And I have in the studio Dr. Charles Shindaile, Senior Advisor, Policy and Strategy, GIZ, Aware. And we also have Mr. Gesho Mpule from WWF, Mr. Ninza Sichinga, CEO of the Copperbelt Forestry Company, Mr. Matthew Blair, Strategic Livelihoods Advisor from the Frankfurt Zoological Society, as well as Mr. Moses Kaumba, who is Senior Forest Research Officer from Forestry Department. Now, you can get interactive on this platform by getting to our social media platforms at EU formerly me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as giving us a call, though at a later stage. 0770 347-221 is a number that will allow you to call through and make that contribution, or indeed ask one or two questions. Now, Dr. Shindaile, the AWARE project is supporting the Lower Kafue sub-catchment in order to improve the rainwater harvesting capacity. So, what activities have you put in place, and what have you achieved so far?
Thank you very much, Dennis. That's a very good question. Yeah, AWARE, as we described earlier on, it's actually funded by the EU and also German government. It is operating in the Lower Kafue subcatchment. Now, when we talk of Lower Kafue subcatchment, we are talking of boundaries from Uytterhaeghe Dam and to the confluence of Kafue and Zambezi, in our case. And of course, it spans into Central Province also and Southern Province. Now, what we are doing, our activities in Central and Southern Province, we are actually trying to rejuvenate or resuscitate the catchment areas where the watershed headwaters, for simple terms, headwaters. What we are doing in actually trying to restore these headwaters, we are making sure that the rainfall runoff is captured. How do we do that? We construct trenches at the headwaters of these catchments that are degraded, and also soil bands. Now, these two features, that is trenches and soil bands, we capture the runoff when it rains, and they are quite massive in terms of extent of spread and numbers. So a lot of millions of liters are actually stored into these trenches and soil bands, which later on percolate or infiltrate into the ground. So we are basically storing that water into the ground, which afterwards is actually coming out as springs into streams and also in the rivers, and especially in the drier periods of the year. This water that comes out as spring is actually used by the smallholder farmers or the communities to water their animals, their gardens, and other economic activities they would do. So we also construct check dams, especially where the area is degraded through gullies. So we construct those check dams to restore those gullies. We also treat the gullies. So once it rains, that silt that is pushed because of agriculture activities that's happening, that is carried by the runoff water, it is actually stopped by this check dam, which fills up eventually, and you are burying that gully. So in a way, you are treating that garden to stop growing or to stop the erosion that comes as a result of the rainfall runoff. The water that is captured is eventually coming into the streams as base flow and also spring, and it's available to the communities, and they use it for their various activities, including gardening, watering their animals, and what else they can do.
Okay, great. Now, Mr. Pole, how important is natural resource management in the protection of biodiversity, and what measures does the WWF call for, given that biodiversity in Zambia is hugely linked to tourism?
Hey, thank you so much, Dennis. First, as WWF, our mission is to see a society where Zambians value and sustainably manage the country's natural wealth to secure equitable opportunities for the present and the future generations. So to achieve that vision, we have a mission where we have to halt the destruction of ecological infrastructure of the country that supports the livelihoods, the economies, and also the sustainable future. So when you look at that, our lives or our economies are dependent on nature, and this is where now we promote the coexistence. And without nature, we cannot survive, especially us as human beings. Nature may not need us, but us as human beings, we need nature. And in that way, this is where we see the critical role that the natural resources of this country play. And when you look at tourism, that is something that government is using as a tool for economic and development, especially in the rural areas. It's able to generate income, create jobs, and also improving the living standards of our people based on the wildlife that is in their locations. And this is where now the protection of the natural resources becomes important, because without the natural resources, as Zambia, it will be very difficult for us to develop, and hence we need to coexist.
Great. Now, let me turn to Matthew Blair. What is the priority, for your organization when it comes to preserving these, resources, given that forests and water are crucial, when it comes to biodiversity?
Thanks, Dennis. I think our priority is to link people's livelihoods to the landscape. So across the North Uytterhaeghe ecosystem and the Uytterhaeghe ecosystems where we're working, we work hard to help people realize the value of the biodiversity in which they're living, particularly in the forest and water sector, vital to everyone's sustainable livelihood development, as well as the protection of further biodiversity streams down the way. So the way we do this is we focus a lot of our activities on governance and working with existing CBO structures to ensure that the resources that they have been protecting reach back to the community, so they're able to further develop their own livelihood capacities within the areas in which they're looking. So we are working with the custodians of the landscape, ideally, and we focus a lot on up on the escarpment level, where the headwaters for most of these streams, the tributaries, feed into the Luangwa and into Lake Tanganyika, on developing sustainable farming models and working with farmers to be able to better manage their farming practices, to try and reduce the sedimentation and to make the best use of land available to them without the unnecessary need to expand their land. And the same when it comes to the forestry management, is to try and place more value on the non-timber related forest products to ensure that these forests continue to stand and have a benefit to the people who are living within them and around them for generations to come, ideally. So that is our priority when it comes to maintaining these landscapes, is to include people as much as possible.
Great, thank you so much, Ninza. You are a big private sector player of the forestry sector, focusing on sustainability. But let me get it from you. Do you feel the sector and its clients will follow the path of sustainability, or do you have any fears we are headed for a total and complete depletion of our forests?
Thank you, Dennis. Indeed, we are a player in the forestry sector. On the part of sustainability, it's a very, very high priority for us as an organization. Now, when we speak of sustainability, we look at it across the board. So, sustainability from a sourcing standpoint. We harvest timber and we process into various wood products. Now, just for the listeners out there, wood has been used for centuries and will continue to be used into the future. So it's not something we can really do without. What we have to focus on is where are we finding, where are we harvesting, and what are we doing? What are our management plans around forests? So in other words, how far up are we doing afforestation projects? As I mentioned earlier, the Tree Growers Project, which is an outgrower support project, is an extended effort on our part to increase our afforestation work. In other words, we're trying to plant a lot more trees than we're harvesting. And for as long as we can do that, we can do it sustainably. Not only just on the economic front, we're looking at it socially as well. So the Tree Grower Project is an outgrower project in that we're trying to include various communities across the board and also educate them on the importance of trees. So the social aspect is also key. And then lastly, environmentally, we're trying to do this in the most environmentally friendly way possible. So we're trying to afforest most of the areas in Zambia without adversely impacting the environment. And with that, we feel that we can get to sustainability. Yes, indeed, Dennis, as we speak today, I would say that Zambia is not yet there in terms of sustainable forestry as a sector, but I do feel that our efforts, and as well as efforts of many other players in the sector, with good focus and concerted efforts, we can get there. So I do see in the next 5, maybe 10 years, us getting to that sustainability aspect as an industry.
Great, quite encouraging. Mr. Kabumba, for you, I would require an explanation, because it's being said that Zambia is cutting trees, cutting forests at some high rate, rapid rate. Now, is it reasonable to believe that we can still stop this trend?
Thank you very much. I think as the people and as governments, we are confident that with the measures that government is putting in place, and also trying to raise awareness amongst the communities, we can achieve this. And what government has done is that we've revised the law, and we are still revising it further. The previous law did not allow the involvement of communities in management of forest resources. This time around, the Forest Act has brought communities on board. The private sector are also encouraged to come on board. And whoever has interest in managing forest resources in the country is welcome to work with government, to partner with government. And then for sure, we are looking forward to whoever partner who can invest in forest management. This has been a problem, like my friend has just said, that we are yet to attain that sustainable management of forest level, which we are striving as government. And we are sure that going forward, we will definitely get there. So bringing government, what government has done is that we have thrown the ball back to communities, because previously communities felt that trees were owned by government and they had no role to play. Like we as in forestry department officers, we were even at loggerheads with communities. Whenever you are doing your work in communities, you'd find that there were resistance. Communities were resisting, but this time around we said, no, since you are also part and parcel of this initiative, please come on board. And what we have done is that the government has also put in place a law, community forest management statutory instrument that is giving powers to communities to reserve some land or some forest areas within their communities, which they are now managing with the government. At the moment, we have even secured slightly above 4 million hectares, which are being managed by communities out there. So this is a positive step, and we are sure that this time around we will manage our forests sustainably.
Great. Let me quickly remind our listeners that they can call us for that question or contribution. Please remember, when you're calling us, keep your contribution or your question, short, so that our guests can still have time, to respond to that. So 0770347221 is now open to you, our listeners out there, for you to call in and ask your question or make a contribution. So as we await to get maybe one or two calls, let's quickly hear from you, Dr. Shindaile. We know very well that water is crucial for the economy, starting with farming and food security. Now, farmers are desperate for contemporary water irrigation systems, and your project, Aware, organizes training on water harvesting. What does this involve?
Thank you very much, Dennis. First of all, I get back to the area question, what we achieved in terms of water harvest.
Yes.
We have done, in our area of jurisdiction, about 16 sites of catchment protection measures, where communities are actually accessing water for their various activities, especially in the dry season when you don't have the rainfall. Now, coming to the question you have just posed, what are we doing with smallholder farmers in terms of training for them to use this resource, that is water we're talking about, sustainably? We have established what we are calling demonstration sites. These demonstration sites are actually venues for training the farmers in terms of sustainable water use. So there are about 32 of them in our area of jurisdiction, and we have trained so far about 11,000 smallholder farmers in drip irrigation, what we are calling also bucket irrigation. It's almost also like a small scale of drip irrigation, mulching, and all the climate-friendly practices. This is to make sure that, in the Lower Kafue subcatchment is actually one of the areas that is drought-prone and very dry. So the water that is available is supposed to be managed sustainably for all the various economic uses. Things like potholing. Those who are in agriculture, completely they will talk of conservation farming. So potholing is part of that.
Yes.
So that you just put water where it is needed.
Exactly.
And that way you're actually conserving the water. So we have also, to support this, we have also rehabilitated 6 dams in the Lower Kafue subcatchment to support the irrigation or the economic ventures our smallholders farmers are doing. So this is just part of making sure that this water is available at time they need it.
Let's quickly move to the farmer training part. The question that I posed to you, just recently. We know very well that you do quite a number of activities, and farmers are desperate for contemporary water irrigation schemes, and we are aware to the fact that you do organize a training on water harvesting, and I mean it. What does this really involve?
It involves training the farmers in sustainable water use, that different technologies of water use that is that are climate friendly and user friendly and sustainable use of this agricultural water, like drip irrigation, like I said, bucket irrigation, like mulching, so that when you water your gardens, the water does not evaporate so fast.
Okay.
Yeah, you maintain the moisture of the soil, so that the crops can actually grow healthy.
Great.
So we are doing this with government departments like agriculture, livestock and fisheries, and also Department of Water Resources Development and other relevant ministries.
Great. Let's see if we can quickly pick a call before we conclude our discussion. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my brother on the panel there.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm very fine. My question is, do we have any harvesting dam to Northwestern Province? Since you are talking about the water harvesting dam throughout the 10 provinces. This is Musa calling. I thank you. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musa. Yes, maybe we can start with you, Doc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musa, for that question. I'm sure if you are listening attentively, most of us are representing organizations working in different areas in the country. For example, the AWARE project that is funded by the EU and German government, we are working in the lower Kafue sub-catchment. And I tried earlier on to describe this area of jurisdiction as spanning from the Uytterhaeghe Dam up to the confluence of Zambezi and Kafue, and of course, basically it's in Central Province and Southern Province.
Okay. Is there anyone who would want maybe to attempt? So it was directly to do with, AWARE, and Doctor has ably responded to him. We have a few more minutes before the close of the program, and our number is 0770347221 if you want to ask a question or make that contribution. Remember, you can also get us on our social media platforms. That's at EU for Mulimi on Facebook, Twitter, and of course Instagram. We have someone on the line. Good morning.
Morning, the panelists.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Sam Joseph here in Manilunga, Northwestern Province. Yeah, this is a very good program that you have embarked on. Zambia is blessed with a lot of rain, and so we see a lot of water going to waste. So harvesting water will mean that we are likely to have farming activities throughout the year. So it's good that you are training farmers, but all we need to see now is extending or spreading that program to all the districts in the country. Because most of the time we hear programs just happening in some areas, other areas are left out. Here we have an advantage, we have a lot of rain, and we have plenty of land. So if you got such kind of activities, even in the Northwestern Province, it's going to be a very big achievement. And we need to change the narrative of doing farming, not seasonal, but throughout the year. People must be able to farm maize, produce, and potatoes and others. So that we have a lot of food. We avoid some of these complaints that are making our country look like we are so much impoverished in terms of maize or shima. Otherwise, that's my take. Joseph Samkwe here in Manilunga. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Samkwe there in Manilunga, Northwestern Province. Now, looking at the time that we are remaining with, maybe each one of you picking from, Mr. Samkwe's contributions, we can maybe attempt, to respond and make our concluding remarks. We begin with, let's begin with Niza here.
Okay. Thank you once more, Dennis, and listeners and callers. I would like to iterate a point on the part of sustainability, especially being a wood processing company ourselves. I mentioned earlier that construction consumes a lot of wood. And actually, if you look at most of the materials that go into construction, concrete and steel, wood is still the best of the three in as far as sustainability because it's renewable. So for as long as we plan our forests well and we plant enough trees sustainably on rotations, we can get to a scenario where not only is there available wood for the industry, in other words, for the use of the Zambians and even the region, but we are actually ahead. We can be providing to other countries who have perhaps not an environment as conducive for planting trees as we do here in Zambia. So one of the biggest like I said, one of the biggest priorities for our organization is to get to that sustainability on the part of afforestation, which is planting net new trees. So every year, for as long as we're planting trees and other organizations are planting trees, we can get to that sustainable use. And also, one of the big parts that's misunderstood is that when we plant commercial sustainable plantations, we actually lessen the pressure on our natural forests. So as we're planting more trees, we actually lessen the pressure on all these other forests in Northwest and in many areas where deforestation is rampant. So these two work hand in hand, and that's been our core focus. So I think that would be my last contribution.
Great. Mr. Kaumba, under a minute, we are overrunning.
Thank you very much. My emphasis is on planting trees and also taking care of our forests. If especially we are to achieve or attain the Sustainable Development Goals, because if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, 11 of them hinge on forests. So it's important that we keep our forests and use them sustainably. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Geshom Pule.
Thanks. I think for us as the WWF, like I had earlier alluded to our mission or our vision, where we want to see a society where Zambians value and sustainably manage their country's natural ecosystems in order to secure equitable opportunities for the current generation and also for future generations. So what we want to see as a country is to see that we have a thriving wildlife populations and forests that are effectively managed to benefit people and nature. Also, we want to see from the government to continue or upscale the efforts to green our economy. Lastly but not the least, also an increasing share of non-hydro renewable energy in Zambia's energy mix, along with health, connected fresh water ecosystems to strengthen the resilience of the country. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Shindaile, and a minute.
Thank you very much. Water is actually a diminishing resource, natural resource. Though in Zambia, I think we are drunk with the abundance syndrome. It's diminishing, and when you look at other areas, they are quite dry. Of course, other areas are still wet. But with the coming in of climate change, you see varying weather patterns that bring in different challenges. So what we need to do is to sensitize our communities even more. In Southern and Central Province, we have interacted with our traditional leaders who have actually committed to make sure they protect the environment. And this has to be continued if we are to win the battle. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Matthew, as we conclude.
Thank you, Dennis. I think just in closing that climate change is real. And as we've seen with our neighbors next door to us in Malawi, how drastic the effects are. And the abundance of water in Zambia is abundant in various places, but as equally dry in many of the others. Key to resolving this is collaborative partnerships that strengthen community benefit throughout the landscape. If we're going to do this and do it well for the long term, we need to look at all viable sources and keep those closest to the ground at mind when initiating these programs.
Great, thank you very much, Matthew. And let me thank every one of you that came through to the program. And it was good to have you, in one place discussing this very important topic. Remember, you as our listener out there, you were following us through as we were taking this opportunity to discuss the water, nature, climate nexus in our country. We had, on the panel experts from several, EU funded projects coming together to come and share with us this very important information. Let me make thanks to Mr. Matthew Blair, Strategic Livelihoods Advisor for the Frankfurt Zoological Society. Thank you very much for coming. Mr. Moses Kaumba, Senior Forest Research Officer from the Forestry Department. Thank you very much for coming through. Mr. Linza Sichinga, CEO of the Cobalt Forestry Company. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Geshom Pole from WWF, we thank you as well for making time to be with us on this program. Not forgetting Dr. Charles Shindaile, Senior Advisor Policy and Strategy, GIZ Aware. Thank you very much, sir, for coming.
Thank you so much.
Great. So there you have it. You've been listening to this special program on Radio 2 as we took a look at the water, nature, climate nexus in our country. Until next time around, my name is Dennis Ilukena.